They are waiting for the interpreter. Hello, everyone. Thank you so much for joining in today for this exciting discussion that we're going to have. However, before we begin, please remember to keep your mics on mute. That's very, very important because it helps the interpreter to voice smoothly and clearly. I have a PPT which I will be talking about first, and then we will turn off the PPT and have the presenters come in. You all know there are two ISL interpreters and there is auto captioning as well. If you know how to turn it on, you can. Otherwise, please click on CC, then the transcript will start coming. If you feel that some transcript is not right, there are two hearing people who are also going to be maintaining the chat and sending in the correct transcript. I would like to inform Tulika and Vaishali that if there's any person over the panel, please type out their full name so that people know that they can possibly pin the panelists themselves. Great. Thank you so much. And I have some rules before we begin. There are certain rules. Why? Because this particular topic can be having two perspectives, signer's perspective and an audiologist's perspective, a hearing perspective. So, firstly, I would like to explain to you what PPT says, and then we have the panel. I would like to thank all the 11 panelists who have agreed to come on today and have been willing to join in to explain about yourselves. Thank you so much. Thank you so much. Also, I would like to thank one particular person from the US, Dr. Sarah, herself a deaf person, audiologist, and also has a cochlear implant. Sarah would be joining in and sharing what their perspective is. So thank you so much for joining in. And there are two audiologists from India, and we have 4 cochlear implant users, and we have parents who are deaf and they had deaf children who decided for them different perspectives. Can we have the PPT, please? Tushar? Yeah. Dr. Allen, PPT? Yes, yes. Please keep everything, keep yourselves on mute. Next slide. The rules, let me tell you, the reason why Here a Million is conducting this session is to have a healthy discussion. There are many people, hearing people, deaf people, having their own opinions, and which is great. We want to respect each other's opinion, listen to each other with an open mind. And the one way of how we can collaborate is if we listen to each other. And I'm sorry, a lot of mobile users can't see, so you'll have to switch it off. It's difficult. I think it's allowed that people can have two screens. One. Okay, please remove the interpreter then. Sure. Great. Let me repeat to let you all know that the rules for today is that we will all have our opinions and rationale behind everything. So we will just maintain respect for each other. And whatever people will be sharing their stories, let's just listen to it with an open mind and be respectful. One way we can possibly learn it is through socialization and learning about sign language, learning about different perspectives, why sign language is important, and then we can collaborate and work together. I don't want to see a segregation today. I know again that this particular topic will, is related to information that is missed out. A lot of people don't have awareness related to cochlear implant, and many don't have information related to sign language. Next slide. Next slide. So how this popped up? How did this come up? One deaf person, his name is Shibil, deaf artist. He decided to just express himself through this piece of art and shared it on social media, particularly Instagram. And there was a huge boom after this happened. I think it was a great thing. But there is problem. It's not all bad. It's good. It's a good problem that we are discussing. It's a healthy problem that we are discussing. We're just sharing opinions and we can find solutions for better. Next slide. I will give my personal story, my personal journey. I went to one conference in 2018. I'm forgetting what place was it. I think it was in Chennai. I think it was in Chennai. And they had a conference, and I saw that, as you can see on the left, the child let every deaf child speak. And when I saw that, and I was, uh, is it possible for all deaf children to speak? No, I think it is false. It is my personal opinion. I don't believe that. So I made another poster in 2018. I made this. All deaf all deaf children must sign. In 2018 till now, it's 2021, and the opinions have changed. Yes, I'm sure, sign language is more respected, the government knows more, and there's more awareness. I'm sure that's good. So now onwards, maybe we can have a discussion and a perspective of pros and cons of both, and what's the perspective like. Next slide, please. Just to give you a background of CI here in India, what is it about? One article I found out in 2017, it was published. It's an old article. It shows that 63 million people suffer from severe to profound hearing disability, deaf. Children here in India, 22 million deaf children in India are there. In Tamil Nadu, that particular state has many deaf children because of the same family marriages. marrying their cousins or incest, basically, which leads to gene disorders, and it could be having deaf children. That's what the research says. In 20 years, 200 cochlear implant setups have happened, cochlear implant centers. 130 of them are performing surgeries when the deaf child goes there. Cochlear implant group came from British cochlear implant group, and that brought it to India. As of 2001, 25,000 CI users, deaf people, are using CI, while about 1 million, that is 10 lakh, are in the waiting list who want to get cochlear implant but are in the waiting. What are the figures? Next slide, please. One quote that says, it says that with the success of national programs, the CI centers, the eradication of deafness, the distant dream of deafness free India, that means not having any deaf person at all and making quote unquote normal people, now remains the possibility of the near future. But I do see this, that awareness is missing. The deaf community, their language is there, the way they're living, their culture. People are not able to identify it, people are not able to see it. It has been taken from this particular article, as you can see the reference. Next slide, please. We will begin with having the artists first, Shibil and his friend Rashid, who supported him in this particular art piece. We can turn off the PPT and have them. The other person, Rashid, is he joining in? Rashid. Great.
Hello, everyone. Thank you for joining here. Thank you so much.
I will voice to Dr. Alim. Can you inform that?
People, I think your internet connection is okay. So you take over, Sylvia.
Yeah. Manisha, can you inform that I will be voicing?
కెమెరా ఆఫ్ చేసుకోను అన్మ్యూట్ మ్యూట్ షేర్ ఏమైనా ఉన్నాయి కదా కింద
Okay. So let's begin. My question to both of you, you came up with this idea of, Shibil, you came up with this idea and you expressed your art through this painting. Why did you do that? What was the reason? Firstly, I would want you to explain who you both are, what's your background like. You can go first, Rashid.
So my sign name is this, and my name is RASH.
Just a minute. I'm so sorry. I would like to inform that Vaishali and Tulika, can you please type out the name of both the panelists? Done? Okay. Yeah, over to Rashid.
My name is RASHID, Rashid MK. This is my sign name. I'm from Kerala.
Great. Shibil?
My sign name is this, and I'm from Kerala too.
Okay. I think it's hard to see Shibil. Rashid, you may have to support us with understanding Shibil's
Okay,
side.
sure.
How did you come up with this idea of having this particular art piece?
So earlier, when I was young, so I do have the leadership skills in myself. So that's how I started, and I thought that I will work on it. When I was watching the deaf children who are having a cochlear implant, who just keep mum and silent, and they just stay lonely. They were not enjoying with as the other children were enjoying. So I just thought that why are they being alone and why are they so not talking to any other person? Yeah, sorry. Okay. So whenever we have a deaf child, so when parents got to know that yeah, we have a deaf child, and they what the questions they will get to know, whether the family would ask to the deaf parents, do you have a deaf child or the hearing child? So they will say, okay, if you have a deaf child, don't worry, we will get the cochlear implant done, and then your child can start speaking. So that's what I would like to know, whether if they get this kind of question or not.
Okay.
So in cochlear, whenever people are getting the cochlear implant, they have to go for the speech. What things they have been provided with, whether the sign language or the speech therapy. I think it would be easy to learn sign language for the deaf children. Yeah, I would like to just inform you. So deaf parents who have the children who maybe around 10 years old, some people would suggest them it's better to get them cochlear implant. That would be better, and maybe they could get vaccinated or they can get the medication and all. So for that, whenever children is not ready, they just get
No,
it done by providing the medication and the vaccination so that they are not in the conscious
no,
mind.
no,
They
Manisha,
are getting.
that's not what he meant. He meant that the children are sedated and then they're taken to the hospital and they're forcibly, they have done cochlear implant, not vaccinated. They're sedated.
So I have met some deaf children who got the cochlear implant, but their parents they were not allowing their deaf children to meet us to talk with us. And I was like, I just want to communicate with them. I just felt bad. Parents were not allowing them. So earlier we do have the lot of deaf people, but right now what we can see with the cochlear implant, as people are just thinking about it as a business purpose, we are not having much deaf people, and all the people are getting cochlear implant. So we are just getting the minority of it. So I just feel that way. With the cochlear implant, the deaf, the people. I would like to ask whether deaf people know about the cochlear implant business thing or not. So what? So why that has been the business of the people that they are informing about the cochlear implant and not about the sign language? So do have the other kind of disabilities as well. Why deaf people are being forced to get the cochlear implant done? It's it's a natural part, right? Why they have been forced to get it done?
Are you done? Or you have something more?
Do I need to stop?
You have one or two more? I have a lot.
Yes, I do have 10 more points. I have.
No, no, just please pick two more. That's all.
So if both of the partners are deaf and they have the deaf child, they would be okay with that, right? But the relatives and other people would say, no, just get the cochlear implant done for your deaf child. And deaf people, they just got confused and so pressurized with their relatives. They're just like that they do not have any other option. So, for an example, if
If, for example, we want to have transplant.
heart transplant, okay. So if I would like to go for a transplant, child would not know whether he would like to go for the cochlear implantation or not. So it would be better after the children get the age of 10 or 11, we can ask them and they could decide by themselves whether they would like to go for it or not.
Okay, thank you. Thank you. I think some great questions, some great points. I think we have a different variety of audience who's going to share their experiences of how Cochlear implant has helped them and definitely can answer all your questions. Great questions. One question I think is a good question, which I feel more and more people with cochlear implant, that means that sign language, uh, you know, it should be deprived. That kind of a question is an important question for deaf people, and how they can learn from different perspectives and let sign language bloom. So towards the end, I will have that question again. Thank you. Thank you for explaining about yourself. Over to Shibil. Why did you make that piece of art?
So
Manisha?
whenever we are meeting with other deaf people, right, we the community, the people who are meeting in the community, we were just discussing the things with other people about the accessibility or the interpreters. So when I started having a discussion regarding the interpreters or the support from the community, so many people just said that cochlear implant is a problem that we need to show to the other people that this is a problem for us. So I was like, okay, they would like to make other people aware about it. So I just thought that I will make some art related to it, because there are a lot of people who would like to learn sign language, but still, the doctors who have done the ASLP, they will not provide the sign language option. So this is I'm not getting this part why they do not provide that option. So in that deaf community, uh, if you want to communicate with anyone, like we can get the interpreters for our accessibility part, but a lot of time what happened that people just end up with the cochlear implantation. So that's the thing. The sign language is a visual language for everyone, for the deaf. So that's the aim for our community. We would like to use that, and this is the reason I made that art.
So you feel that people should decide that, that there should be sign language at the same time as well?
Yes, I think okay, they can decide whether they would like to go for the cochlear implant or not. But I think it's more important for the relatives and the family members. They should have the awareness related to it. If they will know that what are the pros and cons of having cochlear implant, I just want to make them aware so that they could have their own opinion. Because I'm watching a lot of people are facing issues with the cochlear implant. But with the sign language, also people can develop. People can have a better future. They can have a good career as well. Just for an example, if I'm a deaf person who, maybe some people think that yeah, maybe we can't get a job and also we sometimes felt not much confident, but the people are saying that that person has got the cochlear implant and they are getting the job, but they are saying not negative things about that thing. So it's not the right thing. I am happy with my life, I'm progressing as well, I'm doing better in my life. So with the sign language we can do much better things. People are, I do have experience. I do use a cochlear implant earlier. I went to the hospital. My parents took me there and they said that, would you like to get the cochlear implant? I was like, okay, yeah, I will get it. But then they said that maybe we have to operate your brain and all. Then I was like, no, 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 I don't want that. So they said sign language would be a bad thing for you, and you will not get things done with it. So you have to go for the cochlear implant. I was like, no, I think sign language is better for me.
Sharing your experiences. I think this helps us bring a message across that wow, it was a wake up call, for people to change perspectives and know both perspectives, benefits of sign language and the benefits of corporate implant. So it generates more awareness. So thank you so much. Maybe towards the end, I will, if there are more questions, I will call you again. Thank you for joining in and sharing your experience. Thank you.
Sure.
Over to the
Thank you.
next two Indian audiologists, Anna and Great. Hi, hello. Wait a minute, please. Manisha and Tushar. Oh, I would need Tushar to join because we have a poll first. Tushar, please join in for the poll. Poll number one. You can explain what the poll is in ISL.
Hello everyone. So now we'll be having a poll question. So before that, I would be explaining that in ISL. Do you think by using the cochlear implant, would you like to learn more about cochlear implant in detail? Yes, no, or maybe. Would you like to have more knowledge or a deep knowledge regarding it? Yes, no, or maybe. Yeah, you can click one of the option. Okay, I think we have the results now. 126 people said they have voted. They said yes, they would like to know more about it. So 90% people have said yes. 71 people said no. 12% said no. And maybe have said 15 people have said no, and 17% said for maybe. Okay, great.
Thank you. Tushar, can you please bring the PPT back? Yeah, please remove Manisha from the spotlight. Can we remove Manisha from the spotlight? Okay, great. I forgot to show the PPT first and how I found out about these two audiologists. And I saw their Instagram, once the art was out, and so many audiologists were responding. And I just picked a few, and one is Dr. Anna. I picked Dr. Anna because she had shared on her Instagram the awareness about cochlear implant and how the process goes. What's the awareness like? She speaks, and we'll have subtitles. So thank you so much for generating awareness about cochlear implant, firstly. And in the video, she has mentioned with an open mind about sign language as well. On the other side is Dr. Amar. He's still a student. He's a postgrad. Amar is a postgrad student right now and is in the last year. And he also commented on the post, and I felt that it was important to have these two people so we can have both on the spotlight now. We can turn off the PPT.
Am I audible?
Anna and Amar.
Hi, am I audible?
Yeah. Just a minute. let Anna also join in.
Can you hear me?
Yes, the interpreter, yes.
Yeah.
So I am happy that both of you are able to join in today. Thank you for your time. Thank you for joining in and raising more awareness about your work as an audiologist. My first question is if you could give your background and the reason why you decided to become audiologist or join this field. Firstly, Anna, you can go. Dr. Anna.
Yeah. So my name is Anna Rajan, and I'm an audiologist. I'm from Kerala, and I chose this career because I always wanted to be in the medical field, but not in the path which everyone is in. So it's actually one of my friend who referred me to the field, and his parents are both deaf and mute. And that's how I came across this course and I read on it, and I was really interested. So I chose this, and I felt that it can be, uh, it has positive side as well. Like when you help people and we find joy in it. So that is the best thing when you can bring the passion into profession. So when I came across this course, I felt like this is the thing which I always wanted. That's how I chose audiology and I came into the field.
Great, thank you. Over to Amar.
Yeah. I came into the field just because I had a family member who was suffering from autism, and I got to know about the field
Your
through
family member has what? Sorry?
he was suffering from autism. So that is how I got to know about the field, and I joined the courses as in BASLP, and I selected audiology just because of passion. I liked how when I was working in the clinics, I liked how it went. So that is why I chose to be an audiologist.
All right, great. Thank you. I think the both of you saw the art piece, the and what was your reaction to it, and how did you like feel about it?
The caption beneath it was actually misleading. I think the caption said that
Just a minute.
yeah,
Is my internet going? Internet has gone
Yeah,
quiet.
Dr. Ali.
Okay, can you go again, please?
yeah. The art was beautiful. Again, the caption beneath it was "Stop denying deaf children their human right to refuse a cochlear implant." So that was actually misleading, and the art what depicted is actually in a negative way. That is not what actually happens in the scenario. That seems very traumatic. So that is why I responded to the post.
Okay, thank you. Dr. Anna?
Yeah, just like Amar said, the art was really beautiful, it was creative, but the caption, like say no to cochlear implant, that was the one which caught my attention too. So when I saw that, what I felt is like it's due to lack of awareness what exactly cochlear implant is, or maybe he's not aware of what it is or what are the benefits. Maybe because of that, you would have come up with such a statement saying that say no to cochlear implant. That's the point when I thought of doing a video so that they will understand what exactly is cochlear implant and whether is it affecting sign language or not, and whether do we really have to say no to cochlear implant as such.
Okay. I saw that your video, your vlog, that and you had mentioned about sign language. So can you tell your perspective on sign language? Do you feel that as an audiologist, you could possibly, people should be learning sign language? And do they tell parents about the option of sign language, that sign language is one of the options that should be provided to deaf children? Yes or no?
Okay. So, first of all, I want you all to see sign language and cochlear implant as two different components. Okay. Cochlear implant is which support the hearing. Hearing is the reception part, whereas sign language is something to express. to communicate. So always when a patient come to us, what we want is them to communicate with, let it be verbal or let it be sign language. What we want is them to communicate their needs. It's not particularly speech as such. But when a patient who is capable of speaking, like when a child comes with a hearing problem, the problem is with their ear, not the speech structures. That is all intact. When the child has the capability to speak, we put out all these options. Okay, the child can go for either verbal or there is sign language, or they can go for gesture. But we put speaking as the first option. But if the patient is coming to us in a later stages where like he has grown up, then the chances of him to develop speech as is very limited. Then we suggest them like we put sign language or total communication. We say total communication, which means all the modes. Total communication is the first option rather than putting speech. So it is dependent on how the patient is or how the person is. It's not like always we say no to sign language, or we say you have to go for speech. It depends on the person. So we have to see sign language different and like sign language and cochlear implant differently. One person can go for cochlear implant and then still continue signing. It's his or her choice. And if they want to speak, we can help them out. If they can develop speech, we can really help them out. Otherwise, also, if they really want to continue signing after using cochlear implant, they can do that. So, doing a cochlear implant is never a barrier for using sign language, or it's not stopping you from using sign language.
Yeah. I think, Amar, are you there?
Yeah. I just heard what she told, and I agree to it very perfectly.
Can
The
you, 1 minute, Amar, can you be spotlighted first?
Am I visible?
Yes. So can you add your perspective to sign language?
Yeah, just like what she has mentioned, sign language and cochlear implant are two different things. Cochlear implant is done for hearing purpose, and the main aim for cochlear implant is to make the patient be able to speak when in a smaller, if it is a child, when we are doing cochlear implant, he'll be able to speak like a normal adult or a normal person. His social interaction can increase. There are many benefits like that in a society when it comes all around. Yes, of course, sign language can be learned by a person who is using a cochlear implant, and that is supposed to be his choice, but not his last option. That is all I. That is my point of view.
So you too do, as an audiologist, you do tell parents that sign language is an option, yes or no, or they
Of
find out
course,
themselves later. Can you add an
no, no.
experience of how the process works? Some people think that all deaf children can be given cochlear implant, or there's one only particular group that can be given cochlear implant. If you can explain that process as well.
Yeah, I can. That is a specific candidacy criteria that we follow to use to select people who can avail.
Amar, you are on mute.
Yeah, Amma, you are muted.
Can you hear me now?
Can you hear me?
Yeah,
Okay. Again, please. Sorry, my internet went off.
yeah. So we follow a candidacy protocol. In that, we'll finish an audiological evaluation and medical speech language and also a psychological evaluation. And once all this is done, we come to we'll rule out certain criterias. For example, if the child is having a bilateral profound hearing loss, I'm talking about only child because cochlear implant is most effective when it is at an age less or a critical age. That is what we call it, an age where the language development is at its maximum. So that is usually less than 5 years. To be mostly, it is followed to be less than 3 years. So it is always better to have a cochlear implant at the earliest. So you suggest a cochlear implant surgery just after the age of 1 year. But again, that depends on how fast the child is being identified. Okay. So if the child is having a bilateral to severe to profound hearing loss, then we will check for the IQ. Not only that, yeah. Can you understand?
Amar, are you done?
No, but hello.
Yes, yes.
Yeah, where did you lose me?
Yes, please go ahead.
Yeah, okay. So along with severe to profound bilateral hearing loss, the child should, if the child is not being benefited with the hearing aid, that is another criteria. So see, what is a cochlear implant? It actually bypasses the impaired region of the ear and directly stimulates the nerve. So when in such a scenario where the hearing aid, which actually stimulates the impaired region more, so we suggest a cochlear implant only if the hearing aid is not benefited for the patient or for the child. This that is we also check the speech identification score. So if the speech identification score is a major milestone which we check, once if it is very poor, then we understand that the hearing aid is not benefiting, then we again suggest for recommend for a cochlear implant. Now this is just an audiologist point of view. From an ENT point of view, the ENT will check if there is no middle ear infection, will do a MRI or radiological tests and to identify whether the nerve is intact and the nerve is working. There is no other issues with the nerve, and yeah, and from a
Yeah.
psychological point of view, he will check for the IQ. So once all these criteria are fulfilled in a child, we ask the child to use a hearing aid for at least a period of 3 months, and to make sure that the hearing aid is not actually benefited for the patient. Now the next
Then
problem that
what? If hearing aid fails, then what?
if the hearing aid fails, then the criteria that I have mentioned above are checked, and if that is uh, that is coming into picture, that means all the above criteria are being cleared, satisfied, then we'll recommend for a cochlear implant. Now the next major issue that is faced by the children are monetary problems. That is the amount that is required for the cochlear implant are usually high. So to solve this problem, the government has already brought in many schemes, including IDIP. The schemes names are IDIP, RBSK, and there are also different funds from the government. So these schemes has changed the point of view of the being cochlear implant being a very costly equipment, because the cochlear implants cost has been taken up by the government. The therapy charges later has been cut short into half. If it is done in a government institute, it is completely free. The mapping and other charges are free. And
Amar, your internet's going.
the mapping and the other charges are free. And along with that, there is a clear warranty period for the internal component up to 10 years and external component for up to 3 to 5 years. So the cochlear implant has two components, that is an internal component and external component. And this actually the money to be spent by the parent or the caregiver is only for the surgery. So all these efforts have been taken by the government to promote cochlear implant so that a child will not feel left out. So cochlear implant, children who has been implanted with a cochlear implant, the aim of the implant is that the child is not left out. So I don't believe that a child with a cochlear implant is left out from the society. Yeah.
Okay. Okay. I think We'll just switch. Thank you so much for sharing your opinion. Thank you for explaining the whole process of what the challenges etc. are. Now we'll go to Anna, and so with that information, do you think that, just let me reverse, when a child can be allowed to use, at what age? 6 months, 1 year, 2 years? What is the right age that it should be allowed to go for a surgery? We'll just switch the interpreter 1 minute. Yeah, we'll just.
Yeah, Anna, you can go ahead.
According to FDA 2002, we can do cochlear implant surgery to a child who is as young as 12 months, which means 1 year. Just like Amal said, we have a specific criteria. Okay, so if the child is below 2 years, then the child should have a profound hearing loss. Otherwise, above 2 years, they can go for severe to profound. And in conditions like if the child is below 1 year and the child is still having severe to profound, they can try a hearing aid for 3 months. And if it's not benefiting for the child, they can go for cochlear implant in that cases. So just like how Amir has explained, so the first criteria is they have to have a like huge loss, like a severe to profound degree of loss. That is when we refer cochlear implant to a patient. And after that, at this point, when you get to know that the child is having such a degree of loss, we talk to the parents about what are the pros and cons and what all are the benefits of cochlear implant and what all are the options available for them. And if they choose a cochlear implant, that is when we refer them to the ENT surgeon or the following steps.
So yeah, I would like to add over here. So you mean the parents of the deaf child, they have been waiting for the 12 months, right? For 1 year for their deaf child. If it would match the requirement, then they will go for the cochlear implant, correct? So it means before that there would be no communication with the deaf child, correct? Between the parents and the child. So what, I don't know if you know that or not. Sign language could be, we have the research paper on it. The sign language learning could be started if the parents know about sign language and they have to have the knowledge. The children can start learning it at the 6 months of age, whether it's 6 months, 7 months, or 8 months. So maybe if the child who are still going to be a 1 year old, so before that they can grab the and they can get the sign language option, right? So you can provide that option too, correct?
See, as soon as the child is born, we have options like neonatal screening to find out the child is having hearing loss. So we start the intervention earlier. It's that we are not start like doing the surgery before 1 year old. We can try the hearing and all the steps can be carried out before 1 year. So if you take the normal growth of a child, even if it is a normal child also, we start by doing gestures. It's not we start talking immediately. It's just the sounds that we start first. Like if you take a normal child also, by 1 year is the time when a normal child starts speaking, like the first word comes out. So during that period, the parents can still communicate. The child can do something called as conga stimulation, like go near the ear and speak louder. And yeah, so it's like that. So if you take a normal child also, they start speaking by 1 year. So and 1 year, if you do the cochlear implant, the delay won't be that much. We can do the therapy. That is where the post surgical intervention comes up, and that is much more important. And we can give the training and cover up the gap and bring the child to a normal speaking child level of a normal speaking child.
So okay, what my perspective over here is, do you think will it be possible for all the audiologists and the speech pathologists to learn sign language so that they can easily provide the basic communication thing to their deaf child? Maybe that can be a role model, and that the parents would also know the options would be available. What do you think?
Yes, I feel like and being an audiologist or a speech language pathologist, learning sign language is very important. Okay, so it's like, but when a patient comes to us, or the parents, the first thing they want is like the child to hear or the child to speak. So to a parent like that, we can directly say that no, go for sign language, let the child sign. But what we can say is we'll try speech, and if it's not developing, we can go for sign language as well. So rather than seeing sign language as a deaf language, I want sign language to come as a universal language, just like how I am communicating in English despite of being a Malayali. I want sign language to come as a general language rather than limiting it to a deaf language. So when it comes in such a point, then I think if the child is not able to pick up the speech or the verbal communication more, the parents will be fine with asking their child to communicate in sign language.
May
But
add
yeah,
on?
that's the thing where I think where the things we can improve over there. So the better thing what we can say, if the parents would be coming to you, yes, I know that yeah, most of the parents, they would like their child to speak and hear first. They would like their child to be a hearing, and so that they can go in the social gathering, right? They can be involved in a with the social part, right? But how do you see that if the children will be successful with the cochlear implant, they can start speaking? I think they can save their time by learning sign language at that time as well, because they can I think get that option as well. So it's just conflicting over here. So I think they need to start learning sign language as well. So when they are growing up, maybe if the speech would be successful, then they will have the both the languages. I mean, benefit of both the languages. That's my opinion. So the more research has been showing now, maybe in the future time, there would be more audiologists or the speech pathologists. They would might provide the option to the parents of the deaf.
The problem with providing sign language at first, like when you have a visual mode, when somebody is speaking, the child tend to develop limited understanding of the speech.
Anna, you are muted.
So when you start sign language earlier, the child start picking up sign language rather than relying on the auditory skill. So when you have a visual mode in front, so when you see something first, that is picked up more, that is more catchy. So the child will pick up sign language or lip reading rather than relying on their auditory skill. So we always say we'll try speech, and if it's not working out, we can go for sign language.
So here the things are contradictory. Okay, I'm getting your point as well. But there was one person, and how many percentage of the successful thing of a percentage of cochlear implant? How percentage of success is there? The person could speak.
See,
Like
it depends on the
I mean, maybe
time of intervention. So when the intervention is done in an early stage, let's say before the critical age, there is a very high. I cannot state a percentage of 90 or 95 or 99, but there is a very high percentage that the child will be able to get a normal language or a mode language in which he can speak properly. And again, sign language and the language that we speak right now, even though if they are considered as two different languages, when we are speaking in ordinary communication, when I'm talking to another person, I use the help of signs, may not be as a complete language. So it is not, we can't say that we are not supposed to show any so we cannot tell that we are not supposed to show any kind of signs, or signs should be completely avoided, or audiologists are against showing signs to the children. No, it is not like that. Total communication, just like Anna has mentioned, that is what we have been concentrating from the beginning. Of course, we'll give a little more importance to audition, because since the child has a cochlear implant, the child now will need a little more stimulation so that the cochlear implant can be formulated into a clear, I mean, can be used as just like a natural hearing. So since it is a new device that is used, the child will require some time to adjust with it. That gap, we are helping to overcome that gap through therapy. So that is what I have to say.
okay. Thank you so much for your time. We have to we do have other panelists as well, but thank you so much for your information. I hope we will work together and will spread more awareness related to sign language and also related to cochlear implant as well. I hope you will provide the sign language options as well to the parents so that they can decide in a better manner. Thank you so much.
Thank you.
Okay, so the next panelist would be uh, deaf parents. Yeah, deaf parents of the deaf children. We would like to have them. One is Sarvesh and second one is Prajakta. Yeah, Prajakta is here. Okay, great. Yeah, so I would just, yeah, can we turn off the PPT, please? Hello, Sarvesh. Hello, Prajakta. Yeah, okay, this is my sign name. That's all. PN. Okay, pointing at the forehead. So, both of you, could you please tell us your background and why did you join this session and being a panelist? Yeah, Prajakta, you can begin. Thank you so much for inviting me over here and interviewing me. Thank you everyone for watching me. So I've been listening to all other people as well. My name is Prajakta Prajakta. I'm from Maharashtra, Nasik. Just a second, there is Dr. Alim here. My internet went off. Yeah, you can go ahead. So my sign is this. Would you like me to share my story? Yes, go ahead. So my parents are deaf. My husband is also deaf, and his parents are also deaf. But they have some other kind of disability. They couldn't. They might have some problem as well while walking. So his parents are also deaf. I am having a deaf child as well, and he's a cochlear implant user. My daughter's sign name is this. Okay. So once again, I would like to clarify: you both are deaf, right? Your husband's parents are also deaf, and also they have other disability as well, correct? So you both of you have a deaf child, correct? And the deaf child has a cochlear implant. Yes, our deaf child has a cochlear implant. So my child is 10 years old. So when she got the cochlear implant when she was a baby, I think 1.5 years old. Okay. So Sarvesh, okay, would you like to start? So my sign name is this. I live in Ahmedabad. My parents are deaf and my grandparents are also. My children as well deaf, child as well. So whenever there has been a conflict going on, the doctor will always say that yeah, people would just go and believe on the doctors. They rather don't believe on the parents how they would like to go. So it just demotivate us. So while attending this session, I also learned things as well. So I hope that I could brief things as also. So I would like to inform Sarvesh. He I've been teaching to Sarvesh in Gallaudet University. Earlier I've taught him 6 years for 7 years. Yeah, you said wrong. Not 6 years, 7 years. So Dr. Alim was a teacher to me, and I've been studying over there. So once again here, so you are a deaf parent and you have a deaf child. Now you are here and sharing your story. So now I would like to ask both of you. You have a deaf child, both of you. Your child is, how do you feel that your child is happy these days? How they are living, whether they are good, whether they are doing great or not? Yeah, Savish, you can go ahead. So with my experience from the Gallaudet University, when I studied from there, I met with the deaf community. What I have learned with the deaf students, the history and the identity. There were a lot of deaf students who came to uh, Gallaudet University from all kind of skills areas, and they know a lot of things. So for example, if I would like to know the name of the body part, whether it's leg or other body part. So when I came here in India, I just encouraged, when my wife was pregnant, so we went for the checkup, and doctor said that, what is your plan for the future? So they show me that if you have a deaf child or a hearing child, what's your plan? So maybe it's a possibility you may have a deaf child. So we're like, okay, if we would have a hearing child or a deaf child, it's the God's decision, correct? So later on, we have a deaf child. We got to know, and so our parents, they were like, "Oh no, you have a deaf child." They were so worried. I'm like, "Okay, we have already discussed, my partner and me, that we will not be angry if I will not be worried as well. But the doctor just were adding things on and on, and they were just saying that no, your child is deaf, and also the other hearing people as well. So I was like, okay, with a deaf child, but the people around the world, they have been just giving the information. No, it's not better to have the deaf child. So I was like, okay, I'm a deaf person. I know my deaf child can succeed in the future. I know that, and I was not worried at all. But other people, they will just saying the things again and again. No, your child will suffer. You should go for the cochlear implant. Sign language will ruin your child's life. And I was like, it's like I said that I have traveled a lot. I know if I could do things better. I was not much confident in that time, so that influenced my wife as well and my child as well. But later on, that was the messed up thing for us too. Okay, thank you. Yeah, yeah, Prajakta. So you have a deaf child. How do you feel about it? So earlier I had a discussion with my husband if our child would be disabled, or what would you think? So we're like, okay, we'll go normally. So, but I was just confused. I was just thinking and talking with my family as well, because I was so young. I wasn't sure. I just got married in early age. My parents, they are not much aware, not skilled enough. If they could guide me and let me know, they were not confident as well. So when I went to the doctor in Agra, and the society of so all the people, when they saw, they didn't provide any awareness, anything to me, any knowledge. So when I got married, when I was pregnant, I thought that I might have a deaf child. So it's like, for the 3 months I've been watching my child, continuously watching. I thought that maybe my child is hard of hearing, maybe my child can hear or not. But I wasn't aware. So how I got to know that my child is deaf? So when we have a Ganesh Pujan, right? So there was a dhol and all, everyone, I mean, there was a lot of sounds. So I was like, my child isn't waking up, my child isn't screaming. If a child would be having a lot of noise, they might waken up from their sleep. Then I thought, they said, maybe your child is hard of hearing. They were like, no, child sleeps. So I do have my heart broken, and I was like, okay, I'm having a deaf child. So we went to the audiologist and the doctors. They said it's good. You can go for the cochlear implant. I was like, no. My husband was also saying no. So for 1 year we had an argument. We had an argument. Like, no, we'll not go for the cochlear implant. He was like, okay, Prajakta, you can decide whether you would like to go. So I was thinking about all the perspectives. I was like, my parents are deaf. His parents are also deaf. They are not working. We didn't get the job, not the good one. So I was think the people think that we are stupid. Maybe people will think our child would be stupid too. So no, I wouldn't want my child to do that. So he just asked me. We just talking to each other. We were discussing. So we had an argument for 2 years. So doctor said, if you want to go for the cochlear implant, it would be better to go before the age of 3. After that, that would not be beneficial for you. I was like, okay, I will see. If I know that, yeah, I would like my child to hear and speak. So we went for the cochlear implant, and it's done. So yeah, that was our decision. So you are done with the cochlear implant, correct? So how do you communicate with your child? Yeah, right. So my child have a cochlear implant. So my child using a hearing aid in the beginning. So my child didn't used to it, but my husband is using a hearing aid. I thought that no, I would not like my child to be upset and all. So, but my husband said no, a child has to use the cochlear implant. So whenever she's going to school and all in her school, we they said that your child is using the sign language. I looked at my child that yeah, whenever you use sign or gesture, I will say for Pani, for Baba. So that's the two things, not for other things. She knows the names. So later on, we were signing. So for 1 or 2 years, we thought that she will go for the speech therapy and all. Then we thought, okay, after the cochlear implant was done, it's been a year. She didn't went for this speech therapy. So, but doctor said that she has to go for the speech therapy. But I was like, I can't speak with my child. What is the use of having a speech therapy? But I can speak simple words, the basic words, but not equivalent to the hearing people. So my bhabi, my uh, elder brother's wife, she tried to teach her, and also my husband tried to teach her for 3 or 4 months, and she and the other uncle, they
Aunt.
tried, and she started speaking, and she was playing with other friends as well, and she's speaking a lot with them. So and also she's signing with us as well. So with the whenever she meets with the hearing people, she could speak, and with us she can use sign language. So it's both ways. So for my experience, if I talk about my job, I have a job at expo stall. I work at the expo stall. So the experience I've been having related to it in Maharashtra. So whenever I would like to communicate with other hearing people, they would talk with my child, and my daughter will interpret for me. So it's been happening from last 4 to 5 years. My daughter will interpret for me. So now in the COVID situation, we are using phone. My daughter will interpret for me. So I'll be chatting with other people. I would say I am a deaf person. I couldn't communicate over mobile over phone, but they would say no, we want to talk over call. They are not aware about the deaf, DEAF, what we say. And also in Hindi, there is a word Badhir, Badhir. So people just mock us. So my daughter will say, okay, I'll just explain to us. My mother is deaf. She can't speak and she can't hear. How she will call you? So you have to text her. Okay, please talk to her on the WhatsApp. So then they get us, they were like, okay, then they just respond to us. So that's the thing which we have been sharing. So all three of us, all the hearing people, if we want to, they want to order anything, how we can communicate with them if they would understand what is uh, the actual meaning of the deaf. So maybe they would know that how they have to deal with the deaf people. So I think yeah, my daughter is helping me as well in communicating with hearing people. So how you are signing so fluently, your daughter as well sign fluently as well? Yes, so she use signs less, but she speaks more because she's 10 years old only. She's quite shy girl. So yeah, when she has to call, she is much confident in that. But yeah, while she's playing, she don't feel much confident, and she is a shy girl. Okay, I think Dr. Alim's net is off.
Manisha, we can switch.
Okay.
The sign for cochlear implant will be using this, not this. Yeah, because It's not that visual. Just hold on your discussion. Dr. Alam is going to be back in 2 minutes. So your daughter right now she's in which class? She's in class 5. So she is going online. Yes, she's studying online. Uh, the teachers, she's able to pick up in class little bit. It's difficult. It's a bit difficult, and yeah, yes, because your story is pretty interesting. I'll talk to you more. Yes, sure, sure. Thank you. Yeah, we're just getting introduced, so that's great. Okay. Sorry, I had a power cut. No problem. All right. Thank you, for sharing your experiences. And Sarvesh, so you were sharing about how you communicate with your child through sign language or okay. Yeah. So I have a deaf child, and the important experience is that there's mental learning and there's receptive development. So in the washroom, for example, we have A, B, C, D, all these, posters everywhere. And we keep showing him new things every day. Every day we're showing him new things. We're just showing him different books. And this is what, and we're signing with him every day with our child. And all this while we've been using that. And at the same time, we're also teaching him oralism, some words, papa, but he's more used to the science and everything with the books. But for me right now, he's 2.5 years old, and he knows complete ABCD already in sign language. He knows YouTube, how to run a YouTube, and he knows every technology. So that's we're also going for speech therapy. Rest everything he's doing pretty well. And my experience with CI with the doctor, it has been really intense. And when I went to the doctor and I asked, why not sign language, the doctor said sign language is such a monkey language, and it's low mental level people, and hearing is high mental level work. And deaf people don't have, they're dumb and they don't have that kind of an experience. That's what the doctor told me, and that just made me so underconfident. And inside the CI, the vibrations inside the ear, deaf people, they feel it less, right? In the ear they don't have that, and the awareness is less. But when you do a cochlear implant, they can, it can implement it a bit more, and there can be a mental development. That's what the doctor said. I asked the doctor, what company cochlear implant is the best. It's CI and all those companies, and can we use MRI? Can we do an MRI? You can't go under an MRI once you've done a cochlear implant. And I was like, okay. And it's not enough. And it had some negatives as well. So the doctor never told me all of that, and I had to research all of that on my own, the positives and negatives of a cochlear implant, and I had to research it myself. So all the information is different, and it made me really confused. So I let go of the idea, and I truly now, I see that he's 2.5 years old, and the other, children with cochlear implant, it's different compared. So the point is responsibility of parents. The responsibility of parents is very, very important. Yeah, from now on, you don't know if you would want your child to have a cochlear implant, but it's important that you have to communicate. I know that my child's cochlear implant, maybe we'll have it, but my child, while he's growing up, and he says yes, I want it, I will accept it, because we've already given, we don't want to give him not have an option. I don't want to have an argument with him later on in life. If he wants to go for cochlear implant, that's good. He's like my son. I don't want to do that to him and later have an argument, and he would blame me that why would you do that to me, being a deaf father. So it's important that we raise an awareness for him. And once he's like 13, 14, 15, and he realizes that he wants to become like he wants to know more words in the hearing world, etc. I want to hear more, and he's confident and ready, then go ahead. Okay. But the doctors, the audiologists, they say that you have to do it before the age of 6. That's the best. I don't. I don't. I have seen my friends who have gotten it in the Gallaudet also later on. So they're 14, 15 later on, so they have gotten the cochlear implant. So yeah, some are successful, some are not. The important thing is that parents are responsible for communication with their child, and that's the most important thing. It's not a must that you have to have a cochlear implant. No, that's my opinion. Because I have seen some researches, and my friends, they're 100%, some 90% they can say they can communicate. The important thing is that parents have to take the responsibility and take the right kind of decisions. if the I think parents have the most amount of the power, and if parents themselves are confused, what do I say on that? Yeah. One question. My mother is also deaf, and we for the cochlear implant, and my mother was okay, for some hearing parents having children with deaf, they also have cochlear implants. They also have some certain issues. And for my mom, being a signer, she can understand my daughter completely. She can understand the signs. And when my daughter, she can speak, so she understands. She clearly doesn't understand hearing people less. More of speech, and I don't think more than of sign language. So I think being deaf, only deaf family, and only deaf children, you can use sign language and cochlear implant both. I think that's more beneficial. And if just being with the hearing people and no sign language, just more oralism, that happens more, and they don't have, because they don't have that kind of an awareness at that time. So we have to reach out to that people as well. And I am able to communicate differently with my child. Yeah, that's one experience. For example, there are trees on a road. There are different trees, right? And once you water all these trees, hearing the person watering the tree grows up, and the tree grows up in different directions. If we don't water, the tree won't grow. So same way, it's how you are nurturing the child. Yeah, hope you understand what I'm trying to say. Yeah. Just want to add here that I know that in Maharashtra there is a group of deaf parents with children who have CI, the hearing aid or cochlear implant, and they support each other. So that's important, and I think it's an important thing that you support each other. Yeah. Sarvesh here. I saw that Dr. Anna. Okay, Sarvesh has lost his internet. Your internet was going. Can you repeat, please? Just recently, I think that Dr. Anna, she was explaining, and Dr. Amar, they were explaining that they said that, sorry, your internet's going. Yeah, your internet's going. You said about Dr. Anna Amar, then what? Okay, we've lost you again. Yeah, your internet's constantly going. I can see everyone clearly. I know. So Dr. Anna and Amar just recently explained about the audiology part of it, since they have the experience that the government is providing the budget to do it, all of that. Yes, I do see that the government is paying for it. That's very important. And I think yeah, after you said when child gets a cochlear implant, after that it got missed out. Cochlear implant, inside they feel a little bit. Yeah, I think my internet's shaky. Yes, your internet's shaky. Inside they feel what? Inside they feel what? I think I'll just come back again. Okay, fine. Prajakta, like you mentioned about cochlear implant, that how the important thing is, my daughter, when she's angry, etc., I don't have any proof of that. You know, you have to look in the eye, and with the deaf, that my parents, they got me a cochlear implant, so that kind of a thing. So it's also important that how she's looking at us, and when her age grows up, I don't know how she's going to react to it, and maybe she's seen like different kinds of experiences, maybe she'll be able to express that way. And what experiences that we have, it's the same thing that we're doing, we're not doing anything up for her. Yeah, for example, I'll tell you, this particular art that person expressed, I don't agree to it, and it's okay. I mean, I felt the same way, but little bit like, there are three hearing people, three deaf people, same parents deaf of all three, and their children get cochlear implant. The other child gets hearing aid, and the other child, third person's child, yeah, go on please, Prajakta. And the third person's child gets a no cochlear implant, just a signer. And the same hearing people, these are deaf parents, okay? And on the other hand, there are three hearing people. They get a cochlear implant. The other one gets a hearing aid, and the signer. Right? Three of them are going together equally. They have hearing parents. They're always they're not complaining at all. They're encouraging their children how to communicate. Cochlear implant is okay. This, that they are doing. They are letting that. They are all in harmony. But whereas deaf people are all, just um, not in harmony. Why are their opinions different? That's my question. So if you don't want cochlear implant, then firstly you ask NIHH. Why did they come up with the idea of cochlear implants in India? Why did all these, there has to be a policy level meeting that, everyone discusses about it. And NIHH was the one who started it. NIHH. Yeah, the doctor there, doctor head there, their interview, we have to have their interview, we have to understand that why this happened, and know different perspectives. Nobody, deaf people are not looking at NIHH and they're just doing that. NIHH is only thinking about oralism and not about sign language. How is that happening? So first that we have to, ask WHO also, why are they accepting CI? How did that get approved? India can also do the same thing, and that's being used. In India, the percentage is high. So if deaf parents they are using cochlear implant for their child, whereas hearing parents are not, yeah, most of the hearing parents would want cochlear implant for their children. What is the solution for that? The government does give a grant, the MLA, and when they see a deaf child, deaf baby, for 7 months, 8 months, 1 year old deaf baby, they give a grant. There are grants available, and deaf parents go and get it. They take the money and they get the cochlear implant surgery done, the whole thing gets over, and then the child gets it. And then it breaks, or sometimes the batteries go, the parents themselves have to afford it, and parents are suffering because of that. The doctors don't inform that these are the pointers that you have to remember, that 1 year long we'll help you, second year you have to get this, third year you have to get this, you have to keep finance this thing, and you have to save that much of money, etc. If we had enough finances, we would have done that. But if a person cannot afford all of that, then doctors are supposed to inform what are the policy level things that we need to be prepared about. Yeah, I'm so sorry, we have the time crunch right now, we have to hurry, please. But yeah, that's good experience you shared. Thank you so much. Over to Sarvesh. Dr. Anna and Amar, like they explained about the audio part of it, and the audiologist, that it's two different things. Sign language is different, and hearing is different.
Nritya.
Totally, The important understanding is communication options. What are the communication options that some kind of fit that we have to remember. But in India, the only thing we are talking about is cochlear implant. We're not talking about other options. Nobody gives us the other options. Cochlear implant is the only option that that's getting sign language little bit. That it's stupid. But different kinds of options, that make you feel comfortable in your life. That is, I feel the problem, and I would like to add it there. When I went to Mumbai to a doctor named Dr. Ramesh, and my mother also went there with me, and we were just talking with the doctor and discussing about it. And I think it was 1 hour or so we left. Once we left, I saw one person, a small child who had gotten a cochlear implant, and the mother was deaf. And she said, it's so expensive. We've been, putting in a lot of effort, a lot of money. It's very, very expensive. And I was like, okay. So the doctor called me inside and said, Ki, this person, she's wrong, her method of teaching is wrong. I said, what's different? The method of, how can be the method of teaching different? I mean, it's altogether a different story and it's quite confusing. So I know that with the time crunch is there, I'm going to talk about it later again, because yeah, I can see it on your face that time crunch is happening. Yeah. There's a different view from both the sections, and best for you have to decide what's best for your child, and just follow your intuition, follow your gut. Yeah, that's very important. Thank you so much for both of you for joining in. Thank you so much for sharing your experience. Now I would like to inform two people. One is Sunny and one is Roshni, to come up, who have personal.
Okay, great. Hello, Sunny and Roshni. Yeah, just a second. Can we have Sunny, please? Yeah. So I would like to thank you for joining us here. I'm so glad to see you here. Can you give your background, a short background about yourself? Yeah, Roshni, you can begin.
I am a cochlear implanting, bilateral cochlear implanting with cancer too. It's been 7 years since I've been implanted, and I grew up when I started as a child. I had a hearing problem. I had a profound hearing loss. My right side was completely 100% profound right from the beginning. My left side was like a good year. When it was detected, it was found that I had only 40% hearing loss. And that was when I started using hearing aids. I was in second standard at that time when I started using hearing aids for the very first time. And when I heard the sound for the very first time, I heard the sound of a moving truck and reacted to that with excitement and ran back inside the shop. I was terrified. What is that sound? And then the audiologist told my mother that she's successfully hearing, or she's successfully hearing. And
Yeah, Roshni, you are mute.
yes, sorry. I ran back inside the shop and I was terrified. Like, what was that? And I just said, what is that sound that I heard? And the audiologist said, you just heard the sound of a moving truck. And I was like, wow, what is a truck? I have never heard that sound. And my mother said, that is a vehicle. And like you have a car, that is a truck. It's a vehicle to carry items. And that's when, growing up, my mother really worked with me towards speech therapy. As like, all of you talk about speech therapy and how to help the child to communicate, to express. My mother and my dad really worked hard in helping me pick up speech. They made me, try to say something. And whatever I wanted to say, it could be anything. It gave me the freedom to express what I wanted to say. And whatever I wanted to say, they helped me to correct the word that I needed to say. Like they would say, this is not the way to say it. This is how you pronounce it. Sometimes I had difficulty. So my mother would keep my hand on her chin to help me understand what is that pronunciation. I went to a therapist near my school, a therapy center in Adyar here in Chennai. And there the therapist would take my school textbooks and repeat in my ear how the words, in school, they make you underline the words to learn for dictionary, for spelling bee, all new words. So the teacher would, or the therapist would repeat in my ear those words that I had to learn, I had to identify. And that's how I became very strong in my spelling bee as a kid. And when I remember that, I always realize that there is always hope. There's always the skill I have in listening. When I listen to what the other person is saying, I'm able to respond. Growing up was really a really Herculean task because with hearing aid, it wasn't really that I'm hearing so clear. There was no clarity as such as we see in cochlear implants. But what I could see was I had to really focus on my listening. And of course, I did look at my mother's face. Like Prajata said, her daughter would look at both her parents to understand what they are saying. The same way, I would look at my mother's face, or my dad's face, or the teacher's face, or my friend's face to understand what he's saying. But that was nothing but a visual cue for me, meaning that I relied on lip reading. I was depending on lip reading to understand what others were saying. And when I relied on lip reading, I was able to understand what I'm hearing. That was an additional advantage for me, my hearing, to make my hearing better. And that's why when it came to school and college, you won't believe it, I went to normal stream school. I studied in a normal school. I studied in normal college. I went to Anna University where I did my BTech leather technology. It was a big challenge for me when I went to Anna University because growing up in school, I went to English medium school. And English was just a common language that my family believed that I had to communicate in. Because the author, the surgeon, the ENT surgeon advised us that English is a common language to express. And if I wanted to go abroad, it would be easy for me to express and communicate. So when I went to Anna University, it was tough because the people there were speaking in Tamil, and I had not picked up Tamil, though I had maids who speak in Tamil at home. And I used to speak to them in mix of English and Tamil. But my Tamil wasn't really so great. And I had friends who gave me the courage and encouraged me to pick up the language. I kept listening to them, understanding what they were saying. It was their actions, their facial expression, their body language that helped me understand the language better. I may not know sign language, but when I know that a person cannot hear me, I either choose to speak slowly or I choose to use actions to express. They may choose my facial expressions, or they can choose to use my body language or my hand movements. And I I feel grateful that there are people out there who can actually really relate to what I'm trying to say. Today, when I am with Cochlear implants, I feel grateful that I'm able to hear clearly, I'm able to communicate, I'm able to express myself. In school, I used to stand out from a crowd, stand alone and face the corner and wonder, how am I going to get people to believe in me? Believe in me, meaning that I can speak to them, that I can conversate, that I can take part in a group conversation. I needed people to have hope in me and let me take part in any panel discussion, any topic, or any competition. The teachers didn't have any hope when I was in 10th standard because they never believed that I would be able to scope or give them pride. They were worried whether I'm following the subjects, whether I'm able to concentrate on what I'm studying or I'm understanding. But believe me, my mother was my backbone, my pillar of strength. She believed in me. My parents had all high hope in me. And it's because of that I am confident today.
Can you just, yes,
and
share it in a brief because we are out of time.
Yeah, when I got my results in my 10th standard board exams, my score was 75%. In spite of learning with a hearing aid on one side, I was unilateral with the hearing aid till I went to college. And that was when the teachers really praised me and encouraged me that yes, I have changed their perspectives. I have given them immense hope that they should not discourage any child or any student, whatever be the form of disability or whatever be the form of manner that they come from or they are in, or whatever situation they are in, every child should be given the encouragement. They should have a pillar of strength. Even the teacher should be a pillar of strength. When I went into college also, it was a really herculean task because different textbooks and you have different references. After that, I went into MBA. There also, I had to really prove myself. I really had to work hard to express, to listen to what the professors are saying or what they're talking about, to understand and to express myself, and to make sure that my speech is really good. Because when I present myself, I have to show my confidence. And everyone gave me that confidence and were really immensely surprised to see that my speech is really good. And why my speech is really good is because I focus on my listening. I listen to what the other person is saying. I listen clearly to what the other person is saying. And when I listen, I'm able to reflect on what I have to say. My reflex is better. My response reflects better. If I'm not able to hear, then I prefer to stay silent and let the discussion pass and then let the topic change. But post my cochlear implant, it happened after I got married, and it helped me to have better communication with my family. And over the years, prior to my cochlear implant, there was a time, I will not deny that my surgeon had actually planted a seed in my mind and said that there is a technology coming your way, and it is cochlear implant. Time is coming. Your hearing loss is getting worse, getting progressive. So think about it if you really want to do it. And by the time I went into my first year of college, that was when I had the laptop and internet for the first time. And I took the opportunity to really read about cochlear implant and hearing loss. When I started doing the research about hearing loss, That was when I got all the answers that I needed to know as a child. Back in the 90s, my parents did not know anything much about hearing loss. There was hardly much any awareness or any internet or any WhatsApp for that matter. But when technology was available, I chose to make use of technology to understand what is really hearing loss that I am experiencing. Because I always used to ask myself this question: why am I the only one in my family to have hearing loss? And this why question has always made me feel very angry about myself. And when I became angry, anger became part of my personality. And today I encourage every parent that when they detect their child having hearing problem, they should explain to their child that this is a problem they are facing, and they should know from the parent at the earliest. Otherwise, anger will become part of their personality, and they would have to spend time going for counseling, and they won't be happy. But I would rather request every child or every parent to encourage their child to get all the answers they need early, so that they grow up happy and in a positive environment. When they grow up in a positive environment, they have the confidence, hope, and faith that they can express themselves and they can achieve whatever they want to do in life. Today, when I think back about my cochlear implant, yes, it was a life-changing moment for me.
Hold on, we are just running out of time. Yeah, sorry. I appreciate your story, but we are running. We have 3 or 4 more people to share their stories as well. So, but thank you so much for sharing your experience of the cochlear implant. How did you feel about it? Thank you so much. So now we would like to move to Sunny.
I had profound hearing loss. I was born with it, and then I got hearing aid when I was 1 year, and I got my first implant when I was 7 and 11 years. So I had a 4-year gap between my implants, and now I've had my implants for 15 and 19 years. So I'm very used to life with my cochlear implants, and I cannot imagine otherwise. And right now I'm doing my master at Stanford University, and I think my cochlear implants have definitely helped me get there. But after taking American Sign Language classes in my bachelor's, I feel that maybe to like when you grow up, definitely I've had a lot of friends who sign with their babies, the deaf babies, but I feel that somewhere you should give the child an opportunity to engage with the world, and then later when they become older, they can make the choice of signing or not. And as for the art, I agree with Dr. Anna and Dr. Amar. I think the art is very good, but I think it's misleading, and that the choice of implants or not going for an implant should belong to the parent or the parent's decision, because ultimately it's the parent or the guardians trying to do the best that they can for their children. And that's all I have.
Yeah, we would really would like to discuss with you more and would ask you more, but we have 10 minutes, and we have 3 more panelists as well. So we will hope see you once again and in other session maybe. But thank you so much for joining us. So we can have now Sneha and Sumit.
Yeah, we can switch the interpreter. Sumit? Great. Hi. Um, I know the time is very, very short right now, but I still want you both to just share your experience with CI. And is it good? Is it bad? The reasons why you got it? Does it help you? If you could share about that. Firstly, I think we'll go with Sumit. Hi, everyone. I was born deaf because of a neuro disorder in my ear, and both ears we went to a lot of doctors. My parents took me to a lot of doctors and didn't work out. And eventually, my parents started to give me a kind of a hearing aid, the old kind, which we used to keep in our pocket. And they forced me to use it. However, I did not appreciate and enjoy using it, and I was using it. And I used to have, I did not feel anything in my brain. Just, the train noises or the vehicle noises, the only thing I could hear. And, there was this teacher. She met my parents and she told my parents that I should go for a cochlear implant. My parents obeyed her and decided that my family decided that, the government and my family had a lot of expenditure, not the government. My parents took the lead to expend for my cochlear implant. I told them I'm not interested, but they thought that I don't know what I'm talking about. So their opinion was that I would start speaking and I would, I'll be a good child in front of my relatives and everyone would be appreciative that, I have a cochlear implant. So that's the only motive they had. And at the age of 11, I had the surgery in 2007. And later on, when my relatives were discussing, they said, "Ki, let's just go for a cochlear implant. Nothing wrong will happen." And we went and we talked in depth with the doctor. I did not know anything what they talked about. I was just sitting there as a child and just observing what was happening. And my parents, they just thought that eventually, after a month or so, I kept telling them that, I don't want to do it. I would just go for, ISL and do that. And they didn't feel very confident about sign language and they were very ashamed of it in front of the relatives. However, I was very confident about it, and they would take me everywhere together and not leave me alone. So I kept my patience, and eventually, they got me a cochlear implant, and I started with the hearing school. And did not understand a word there. My teacher was teaching, and question answers. The hearing person next to me, I used to just peep into the person's notebook and copy paste from the person, and that just felt enough. I understood no expressions that my teacher were using. So at home, when I used to ask my parents, they also had a difficulty in explaining me, and I told them, "See, told you, it won't work." And then my parents eventually they decided that, looking at my deaf friends, that cochlear implant is something that's not working out. And I went to indoor school in class 9. I was 15-year-old, and my parents, they saw so many deaf children. I was just sitting in the backside of the class, and my parents was watching that so many children were using sign language, and they said, "Okay, fine, we will not pressurize you. uh, can I remove my cochlear implant?" Is what something I said. "Can I keep it?" So what do I do? So it's just kept, and the money was wasted. Instead, I would have just bought a car for myself, and that would have been, more beneficial for me. And then I asked them that, if I was at the age of 5, it would have been different impact, but I was already 11. It was too late. He was late. And then, at that time my parents were not aware. I don't blame my parents, they were not wrong. It was the teacher maybe who misguided them and forced them that my parents should go for a cochlear implant, and my family also believed her immediately. And rather than, respecting my choice of having sign language, so that was a big challenge that I faced. And I've convicted, and in Indore I learned so much, all the words, everything, and I started to understand and feel good about it. And from some yes, when I was in speech therapy classes, I was not able to understand anything. But here in my classes, I was able to understand, and my family also, agreed. There are still some challenges we face, but I have been very positive about myself, and I understand that this is my language, and we've been taking it through them. So, do you feel that sign language is you learned on late, but you feel that you could possibly communicate with other deaf people and felt understood, or how about cochlear implant? See, in the classroom, people were looking at me when I had a cochlear implant, and I wanted to go and play with children. I wanted to go and play, and they would not let me play because the doctor had given the guidelines. You can't, like, so you have to stay away from the accidents, some guidelines and some limitations, and so we had to be very very careful. So I was like a loner kid that time because of that, and I wanted to be involved, but they wouldn't let me, and they would tell me that it's not easy, you have to be very very careful and mindful, you can't get hit, etc. So yeah, you know people would not even sit close to me, and sometimes, so yeah, I kept my patience. There have been challenges, but I've been positive about life, and I've seen that a lot of deaf people face that, and it's an ongoing thing, it's an ongoing life, and yeah, so we have to remember that. Thank you for sharing your experience, important experience for us to see a different perspective as well. Over to Sneha. You can your background of how you decided to go for cochlear implant, what age, what your experience has been.
Thank you. My name is Sneha Uttam. I am doing PhD at Tata Institute of Social Sciences, Mumbai. I used hearing aids since 1 year old. Hearing aids never helped me to understand the speech because I have profound hearing loss in both ears. So I always faced the challenges in communication never understood in the classroom. Even now, I try to avoid attending conferences. When I was 12 years old, my parents thought of my cochlear implant. My parents took me to an audiologist to get explored about cochlear implant, but the audiologist discouraged my parents by saying that I was doing very well with my hearing aids. Why offer an implant? I heard about cochlear implant when I was in college, but I did not think deeply. After I joined my PhD, we started discussing about cochlear implant in the family, but I was against it, so they suggested that I should meet people who had red implant. I talked and found few common things that after a ear implant operation, their confidence has increased and they don't avoid talking to new people anymore. At this point, I thought that I may not highly benefit from the implant, but I am happy if I end up with new people confidently. We visited AIISH, Mysore, and a number of sittings with audiologists and doctors, both in Mumbai and Kolkata. We were planning to go for this, but the pandemic came and the whole process got delayed by 1 year. It has been 4 months after the cochlear implant operation. For the first 3 months, I was not listening really. Slowly, I learned to identify the home-based environment.
Can you unmute yourself, please? Go ahead.
So in speech understanding, I can identify vowels and very few consonants like M, S, SH, word length, syllable differences. For vowel, right now, with hearing aid and cochlear implant, I understand better in communication. Auditory training is still going on. I was observing the difference between hearing aids and cochlear implant. The perspective of the sound is completely different. With hearing aids, I listen to only low pitch sounds and hear better to the male voice. With a real implant, I listen to high and low pitch sounds and hear better to both voices. Because of the pandemic, I am also observing that I am not able to communicate with many people and explore different sounds outside the home. So I am not able to learn new things that I want. Now I am having online therapy. So I am having difficulty in understanding how to clarify my speech because of the limitation of the accessibility.
All right, great. Thank you for sharing your story. I would want to know that what is your perspective of sign language?
When I was doing MPhil, I had challenges of taking the interview with deaf people who use ISL. So I decided to learn during PhD program. Last year, I learned online ISL session at the basic level. After learning, I have realized that if my mother and I knew ISL in the childhood, it would help me to understand in my studies and I would perform much better when a real implant was not available in India and at the same time, hearing aids were not helping me to understand the speech. In our country, children are identified late and often do not yet with hearing aids. Learning of ISL would be very helpful for them for learning language because ultimately language matters.
Right. So you said you're learning ISL and you're also gotten the cochlear implant. So you feel that you have the options of both, you know, if there are challenges, you could switch to ISL, or do you feel that, what do you feel about that?
And please repeat the question.
Okay. Yes. So you said that you learned ISL and while growing up, you were speaking, you're using speech. And now that you've learned ISL, you feel that you benefit of having an option that you can speak at the same time, you can also sign. So, do you feel that it's a good thing to have both?
Yes, it is better to learn both speaking and sign language. When you talk with hearing puppets, you can use oral mode, and when you talk with deaf people, you can sign language. So it is basically basic survival mechanism. So it is better to learn both.
Okay. Thank you. Thank you, both of you, for sharing your story. Thank you so much. I would want to know more and have an in depth discussion, but that's for the next time, maybe not this time. Thank you so much. I think this gives us a different perspective as well. Thank you. Now we have one last presenter from the US, audiologist her themselves, and also has a cochlear implant and would be sharing their experience. Dr. Sarah Sparks.
Should we switch?
Hello, finally, nice to see you. I'm happy that you could come today and observe and learn different perspectives. And also, I just followed your new Instagram, Audiology Outside the Box. And it's I really appreciate the page that gives different perspectives of the language as well as the hearing. So if you could give your background and what do you do?
Hello, it is very nice to meet you finally. I am an audiologist who lives in the United States. I live in Washington, D.C., the capital of the United States. I studied audiology at Gallaudet University, which is the world's only university for deaf and hard of hearing people. I was very fortunate to be able to study audiology there. I also used 2 cochlear implants to hear, and I speak English and I sign American Sign Language, but unfortunately, I do not know Indian Sign Language. It's been interesting during this session to see some of the similarities and some of the differences as I've watched everybody sign. So a little bit about my experience. I was born hearing, and I have a progressive hearing loss, so I lost my hearing over time. And I used hearing aids for several years before I got cochlear implants. I actually got my cochlear implants while I was studying to become an audiologist, which was a very interesting experience. I wanted to become an audiologist because my experience previously with audiologists was that they didn't know any sign language and couldn't communicate with me very well when my hearing devices were off. I thought it was important that audiologists should learn the sign language of their country to be able to communicate with signers who would come to audiology appointments. So I wanted to be able to do that for people within my deaf and hard of hearing community. So that's why I decided to become an audiologist. I have found that within audiology, there can be a lot of misconceptions about sign languages. I think it's, I'm hearing some interference. Okay.
You can unmute yourself, Sarah.
Okay. So I think that in audiology, there are sometimes misconceptions about sign languages. I think some audiologists are not aware that sign languages are full, complete languages, just like spoken languages. And I also think that some audiologists are not aware that sign languages also support brain development, just like spoken languages do. So I think educating about that is very important. And I always encourage parents of deaf and hard of hearing children to keep an open mind and to give them every possible resource that they can give them, which includes sign languages. And if they also want to do spoken languages, then that as well. I think the most important thing is making sure that a child has at least one language as a basis for both communicating and for other things too. I think a lot of people do not realize that language isn't just about communicating, it's also about how we think and how we solve problems, how we analyze things, how we process our emotions. All of that involves language. And if a person doesn't have language, whether it's signed, spoken, written, then that person is not going to be able to do all of those things as well as someone who does have language. So I always try to make sure that parents I'm working with their children are aware of that, so they know that exposure to language as early as possible is very important. And if a child is going to get cochlear implants, even before they get the implants, sign languages are accessible for them. So they can have that language input before they ever get cochlear implants. And I think sometimes that does not get emphasized enough in audiology. So on the whole, what I do is I try to give an example that people can have both things. They can have cochlear implants and they can have sign languages. But the most important thing of all is that the person has a language, regardless of what that language is.
Thank you. Thank you. I just want to clarify here again. So you said that a lot of misconceptions, the reasons why, because there's no awareness about sign language and how it can be benefiting and not like a conflict with speech or cochlear implant, right? Or speech first and language is separate, or is it okay to have a blend of both and both can go parallelly?
So I think that the best thing that professionals can tell parents is that speech, language, and hearing are 3 different things. And language is the most important of all three of those. A person can have hearing without having language fluency. They can have speech without having language fluency. But if they don't have language, they're not going to be able to function as well in life as somebody who does have language. So I always emphasize with parents, it's not a matter of do I want my child to speak or do I not want my child to speak? The first most important thing is, do we have a basis for language? And I think that with misconceptions among audiologists, some of that is from misinterpretation of the research. There are some research studies that seem to suggest that sign languages and sign language exposure will inhibit the success with cochlear implants later. But many of those research studies are either interpreted incorrectly or the researcher themselves did not have a good understanding of the difference between, say, an actual sign language and a sign system that is not a sign language. So I think it's important for me as a professional to educate my colleagues about those things as well, so that those misconceptions don't continue to get spread to parents.
How, so your experience, how do parents react to it when you tell them that language is important? That language is the key. So do they accept it or do they have a hard time accepting it?
I think if I explain it to them in a way that is easily understandable at the level of a parent, they tend to react really well. The key is really explaining it well. So the way that I explain it is that speech is what a person produces with their mouth. Hearing is the experience of sound, but then language is what's stored in your brain. So I actually use myself as an example because I had spoken language before I lost all my hearing. And because of that, I already had English stored in my brain before that happened. So when I lost my hearing, I didn't lose my language. I didn't lose my understanding of English. And I also didn't lose my understanding of sign language, of course. But I think parents don't often think about it that way. They are often told that speech and language are the same thing, or it's implied to them that it's the same thing. But when I separate it out for them like that and tell them, when I lost my hearing, I didn't lose my language because they're two separate things, suddenly a lot of parents say, oh, I never thought of it that way. I never thought about the difference for those things. So I think it's very important to emphasize that those are three separate concepts.
Right, totally. Thank you so much for explaining that. And that kind of information is something that's, not spread across here in India and it's missing. So it's good start. I feel it's good beginning for an opportunity to build a community together with the audiologists, with the speech pathologists and the deaf community. So any tips or any advice that you would like to give us on how we can, work together and inform that language is through brain and the choice is, it should be given to all the people and not just be limited to certain things, and language should not be oppressed or deprived.
Yeah, I think that there are a lot of misunderstandings between signing communities and cochlear implant communities and audiologists as well. I think listening to each other is really important because sometimes we are speaking past each other. We think we're understanding what the other person is saying, but we're really not. I know that before I became an audiologist, because I was already involved in my local deaf and hard of hearing community, I had some misconceptions about what audiology was. And sometimes when I work with signing deaf and hard of hearing patients as an audiologist, I will see that they might have some misconceptions about audiology, but then audiologists also have misconceptions about people who sign. So I think it's important for all of us to have these dialogues like we're having today and talk about these things and get other people's perspectives. And I think it's important for professionals who understand what the actual research says and who are open-minded about sign languages to educate our colleagues, because that's a very important thing that we can do. It's a huge contribution that we can make as professionals.
Thank you. Thank you. One last question to you. Two in one, actually. How many deaf audiologists are there in the US right now? And I know you're the first deaf audiologist I have ever met. So I'm like, whoa, finally, someone and deaf who's an audiologist. And secondly, how do you spread the awareness to other audiologists to see, what your experience has been and your experience with sign language with the parents? Is it changing their attitude or is it still very challenging?
Yeah, so there are more deaf and hard of hearing audiologists than people think there are, at least in the United States. I'm not sure about other countries. We have a group called the Association of Audiologists with Hearing Loss, and it has people in it from other countries as well, but mostly from the United States. And there are more than 300 people in that group. Most of the members of that group are hard of hearing and use hearing aids. There aren't quite as many deaf people who use cochlear implants or deaf people who use hearing aids, but we do exist. There are some of us, and I'm fortunate to be friends with many other deaf and hard of hearing audiologists. And we all have different perspectives too. We all have different stories, grew up in different ways. Some of us sign, some of us don't. And as far as the education piece goes, educating other audiologists, I think it's a work in progress. It's a slow process that I'm seeing progress on. And when I meet a colleague who has a misconception, I try my best to address it. Sometimes that is successful, sometimes it's a little bit less successful. But I have had hearing colleagues thank me before for telling them things about sign languages that they didn't know, or talking with them about what the research says, or just being open to the conversation. I think that one of the positive things about me being in the position that I'm in is that I can speak to people in multiple worlds. I can have these conversations in signing deaf context in American Sign Language, and I can have these conversations in oral deaf context with people who have cochlear implants and communicate in spoken English only, and I can communicate with audiologists about all of this as well. So I feel really fortunate.
Right. I think one important question that is asked, but that's okay. But when you were growing up and you acquired your deafness, how did you study in college? Did you have interpreters or some kind of a support system?
Yeah, I think this is a really interesting point because many people assume that if you have speech as clear as my speech and if you're fluent in English, that you don't need these kinds of supports. I definitely need these supports, even now as a professional. When I was studying, I had interpreters, I had captioning services. And now, as a professional, I have to do things differently than my hearing colleagues do. I use a video phone instead of a regular phone to make phone calls in my professional life. I have to do listening checks on hearing devices in a different way than my hearing colleagues do. I've had to develop my own device for doing that for myself. So that there are differences in how I do things than how hearing people do things, even though I speak really well and am fluent in English. So I would want people to know that just because a person has fluency in spoken English, and even if they speak very, very well, that doesn't necessarily mean that they hear as well as they speak. And especially in the case of someone like me who has a progressive hearing loss and became deaf over time, I had a lot of access to spoken language before I became deaf, and that's why I speak as well as I do. Someone who is born deaf is not necessarily going to have the same experience as me. So it's important to be aware of all of those differences.
Yeah, regardless of any, cochlear implant or hearing aid, you always need some kind of a support. It's never 100% accurate hearing, right?
Mm-hmm.
Great, right?
I see someone in the chat that said they wanted to see me use ASL. I can show you my sign name in ASL. This is my sign name.
Why this? Why?
So it's a combination of two signs, spirit and dictionary, because before I became an audiologist, I used to be a religion teacher, and that's why spirit and dictionary combined.
Thank you. Thank you. So thank you so much for your time, for joining in this chat. I'm sure it helped provide a very different perspective and how language is the most important thing. So thank you so much. Great. Now I think we have to wrap up. I will show you the PPT. We can turn it, you can turn the interpreter off. Next slide. Next slide. Next slide. Yeah. So I know the time is up, and let me just inform that Hear a Million has an Instagram page, and we are translating, these informations in ISL. Why, different perspectives of audiology and language, and how speech and signing is equal, not, unequal. Next slide. So for the audiologist, Dr. Sarah, she has also started her Instagram page focusing on the awareness of language, why it is important. The hearing aids, the cochlear implants, it's not a mandate to pick one. You can have both, and it's up to you to decide what works best for you. So I request you to check the Hear a Million Instagram page. We have translated her information in Indian Sign Language. It's an important quote, I feel, very important quote, and we all have to remember. Denying language access is a crime. It's wrong, and you should be jailed for that. Learning Indian Sign Language is not a crime. There's nothing wrong in it. It's beneficial. In my opinion, cochlear implants or hearing aids are a tool to support, but they never solve the 100% hearing issue, or they will never do that. I don't agree to that. But I want to tell you all that you must learn how to support both. You should respect the community. Let them decide if they want to go ahead with cochlear implants or hearing aid. Respect them, and respect the people who use sign language and want to learn sign language. I believe that sign language is the first language. Being the first language can develop you and can have the brain functioning much better. So there are many researchers that tell that. Even in the Europe, even in India, I know we are delayed, but I hope from now on it can be influenced and we can have more researchers here. And I want to inform you all to collaborate with the audiologist, work with them, work with the audiologist, speech pathologists, explain them, make them aware about sign language, and at the same time, we can work together and blend for good. Rather than, both ways we having challenges, it won't work. So again, I want to thank all of you all, so many people in the panel to join in today, sharing your perspective, positive experience, negative experience. And I hope from now on we can have an open mind. Secondly, I know we have a poll, 2 more questions. If we can have a poll, I'll have Tushar join in for the poll. And then we have a form as well, feedback form, which you can fill out. So it's time to just wrap up. So thank you, everyone. And sorry, I know a lot of you have questions, but we don't have time today. Hopefully next time we can have, questions, and you can directly ask people and even check the Instagrams. Thank you. Thanks to the interpreters. Thanks to the panelists. Thanks everyone for joining. Thank you people for joining in. Hope you had an interesting time and got to learn something. Special thanks to Dr. Sarah for joining in. Thank you. Manisha.
Yeah. Okay, so we can begin now. So I would like to ask everyone related to the cochlear implant. So the cochlear implant user or the deaf community, would they like to collaborate and would they like to spread the awareness regarding sign language? Yes, no, or maybe? Tulika, can we have a poll question, please? Yes, you can answer the questions on your mobile as well. I hope you can see the poll questions. Okay, great. So 123 people have answered the poll question. People said yes, cochlear implant user and the deaf community can be united to spread the awareness regarding sign language. 93 people have said yes, 73%. 9 people have said no, 7% only. And maybe 21 people have said maybe, 17%. Okay. Yeah, one more thing, we have third question as well. So the policy, would you like to include the things that the speech therapy or the cochlear implant and also the sign language should be provided as an option, and it should be included in the policy as well. So the doctors, whenever they are guiding the parents of the deaf child, whenever the parent is visiting the doctor, they should inform all the options to the parents, the related to cochlear implant, hearing aid, speech therapy, and the sign language. And they are supposed to inform that sign language should be an option, and they have to tell to the parents whether you think yes, they should inform. Yeah. So can we have a poll question, please? Okay. So should it become a policy for our doctors to inform parents of the deaf children of the communication options, whether it's cochlear implant, hearing aid, speech therapy, or sign language, that they should have a policy? Yes, no, or maybe choose one. Yeah, I can see people are still answering. Okay, is my internet connection fine? So 141 people have answered the poll question. 122 people are agreed. They said yes, 87%. 9 people have said no, 6%. And for maybe, 10 people have voted for maybe, and 7%. So thank you so much everyone for answering the poll question. I think we are done.